Hello, everybody, and welcome to another week of the Frenzy Extra. Andy Lacombe alongside Jim Wilson, Worcester Telegram and Gazette sports editor and Home Team Magazine, and our own Kevin Shea. These two guys, they look like they're ready to go. They look like they're contentious already here. After the first 2 weeks of intense debate, we are going to start talking about some of the games we just saw this past week, and there were some good ones, and we previewed the first one we'll talk about, which is St. John's and Shrewsbury, and the Pioneers getting the better of the battle for Shrewsbury. How did this one play out, and from what you've seen, read, heard now, in your eyes first?
I think it was a good, we knew it would be a good game. I mean, these two teams, we talked about last week, how they get up no matter what the records are. This is one of those games where they get a benchmark, and it helps a lot because it's power rankings time. So they get the points, they get the 12 points for winning Division III games. That's big. But I think it's tough when you give up the 34 points to say the St. John's defense is looking better. But you give them what they had last week. They had a big interception against Wachusett to seal that win. They come up with a fumble recovery and a big stop on a 2-point conversion this week to stop a surging Shrewsbury team. So I mean, I think if they can settle down the points, they're in good shape going down the rest of the way, because those guys can make the big stops when it counts.
St. John's needed a win to say, hey, we're back here in Central Mass, right?
Right. Oh yeah, they got it. They did. I mean, we've talked about it on this program the last couple of weeks. They played their first 2 games out of the area in Eastern Mass, and people think, oh, they're 0-2. St. John's is done. Let's put them in the grave. Not so fast. I mean, they come back. They're playing Central Mass competition. They won this game without Iman Dennis. He played 1 snap. He was hurt. Colin Deso's the kid. He came up with the pick six a week ago against Wachusett. He was the one who stopped the 2-point conversion. He beat the man that was trying to kick him out. Stops the Shrewsbury running back on the 1-yard line. So Shrewsbury would have gone up 1 with about 2 minutes plus to go in the game. He stops them. Then St. John scores. Then Shrewsbury comes back down the field, and they're only down 8. So it's a 1-score game. They're driving. Campanelli hits a receiver at the 15. He gets down to the 11, gets hit, fumbles, and St. John's recovers the ball. That's how close these two teams are. It's a stop and a fumble recovery late in the game, holding with your backs against the wall to hold against them. One of the big things I look at, Colin Schofield completed 78% of his passes in this game. What that tells me is he is understanding this offense, and talking to some of the coaches, the game's slowing down for him. He's seeing things now. I think everyone got spoiled with Pachalia because he was so smart. He was such a smart quarterback, had been in the system. Schofield hasn't been in the system because he went away for a year for a different school. So now he understands. He went away. He went away, he's back, but he understands the system now. He understands what teams are trying to do. This is a kid, when you complete 78% of your passes and the coaches say the game's slowing down for him, he is, if you're a team that's going to play them, look out. Because if he understands it with the weapons they have, and look at what Shea Gallo's done, look at what Jay Brunel's done. They were triple covering Jay Brunel. Chris Moriarty's a great offensive coordinator. He used that, said, okay, we'll do that. We'll decoy Brunel. 3 guys cover him. We'll go to the other side. And they did it, and they moved the ball, and they scored. And then when they adjust the other way, okay, now we got Brunel with 1 or 2. We'll hang it up for him, let him go get it.
Right, especially, like you said, when Dennis goes down, they have that option. They just adjust, which was scary for other teams.
Quarterbacking is a process, and not to delve too much into the past, but I was at the first game Steve Buchalia started at Shepherd Hill. So much different type of Steve Buchalia than we saw at Gillette last fall. I mean, it is a process, and Schofield's going to get better and better in the system because of the great coaches and the great players he has around him as well up front.
But Shrewsbury, you can't count them out. I mean, there was a huge. They're going to be right. I can't wait for the rematch.
Well, I'm hoping they are. I'm hoping it's the first round of the playoffs.
It could be. I mean, the way we'll talk about the power rankings coming up, but I mean, I think having that the comeback. He's coming off an injury. We talked about it last week. It was non-throwing shoulder hand. You wouldn't notice. I mean, he just came in. They didn't miss a beat. They lose. Cam Schaefer. Hopefully not. I don't know how long he's out for, but it looks bad.
Well, yeah, he said it was a broken leg. Cam himself said it was a broken leg. That's a leader for you. Forget the production even on the field. I mean, he's a producer for him on the field, but leadership. You can't put a price tag on leadership. That's a big loss for Shrewsbury. And you feel terrible for him too because he's a senior. You know, your senior year, your captain worked so hard. It's tough. It's definitely tough. But Campanelli, leadership. Right. You know, he's hurt. He's obviously hurt. And it's whether it's subconscious or not, in the beginning of the game, he's kind of probably feeling out his shoulder a little bit. And then the instincts come over and that competitiveness comes over. And then he had that long run on the far sideline for a touchdown late in the game. That's just a competitive kid saying, I don't care how I feel. I don't care how I'm going to feel when I wake up tomorrow. I want to win the game today. This means something to me today.
And did they show everything they had in that opener? You know, you save something for the rematch.
I don't know. That's a good point. That's a very good point. I mean, you've got two great coaching staffs. I talked to a great booster of Central Mass football, the T. Boone Pickens of Central Mass football. We'll call him DB. But he was raving about that St. John's coaching staff. He was raving about him, saying that coaching staff has done a phenomenal job with these kids.
He should be raving about it.
They got boosters, you know, out there.
People at home, all right, that's
I want a tractor.
That's enough talking about the red team right now, all right? St. John's looks good. Shrewsbury's great. I think, the thing about Shrewsbury is they had key guys that were down and hurt in their run to Gillette a few years ago.
Right.
A great coaching staff, good depth there. Shrewsbury's going to be fine. Let's move on.
I want that rematch. I really do. I want it week 1 on a Friday night, please. On a Friday night, please, this year, not a Saturday afternoon.
Get the temporary lights out.
Play it at Assumption.
We've got lights. Play it at night. We'd love to be there. Kevin will even be. If it's a Friday, Kevin will be there.
Clear the schedule.
All right.
Get the babysitter.
Let's talk. There were some big upsets last week as well. Tantascwa over Grafton was the one that I think a lot of people turned a lot of heads in Division 4, and Fitchburg beat Marlboro, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But Tantascwa's a team. We said it on the Frenzy. They lost to Doherty 14-0. Right. You weren't sure. Were they beaten in that game? Would they hang around in that game? They go and they blow out Auburn in Auburn on homecoming. And you don't usually schedule a team you think is going to kill you on homecoming. And then they beat Grafton, albeit on a last-second stop. Tantascwa, are they legit contenders right now?
I say yes. I say yes with what they've done the last 3 weeks and capping it off with a win over Grafton, who's one of the most physical teams in Central Mass.
Yeah.
And anyone will tell you that. They are one of the most physical teams in Central Mass. To beat that team, that's a huge program win for Tantascwa.
They're still young. Are they legit?
Yeah, I had the eyeball emoji ready when I saw that game.
Yeah.
It was one of those, what gives me pause is that Wachusett game, because they got handled by Wachusett. But they're not going to see Wachusett the rest of the way. In that division, they're not going to. They've seen the Wachusett toughest team they're going to face by far, and they're going to do that to a lot of teams. So, like I said, I think the Auburn win, I think this Grafton win where they came back, they fought, it was back and back, they stopped them. What was it? It was a pass interference penalty, gave them the ball down deep in their end. They got a pass to the end zone that was incomplete. They put a second back on the clock, and they still, all those things. The high school kids usually sometimes fold. Oh, that's not our time. Grafton's too good. They answered the bell 3 times in that game. That was impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that win, I mean, Grafton is still very good.
Grafton's
on it, and all the guys there. They can play an experienced quarterback in Holbrook and a good-sized line up front. There's still a lot to be done in Division 4. Marlboro is still in the mix there at 4. Grafton's there in the mix. Now Fitchburg's creeping up a little bit. Could the Red Raiders be a part of this action?
I've been talking them up all year. I keep thinking Fitchburg is a lot better than the record indicates. They took a while. They're a young team, replaced a lot of starters. I think that win was a big program win for them. I mean, coming up, Marlboro is a very good team. We talk about them every week here.
Yep.
And for them to come back and win the way they did, they took a safety at the end, so it scores a little closer than it looks on paper. But they're really, Andrew Brooks has been having a phenomenal year, quarterback for them. They said in stats once in a while. We talk about them more. But I mean, I think that was a good win for them because, like I said, Marlboro, they're going to be there at the end, and to have that kind of win in those terms, that says a lot about that program.
Neshoba's in Division 4. They're the tops right now, no question. Tantascwa sits at number 2 in the power ratings, then Grafton, then Marlboro, and Marlboro's only, 0.72 up on Fitchburg.
Fitchburg has a shot. Marlboro's got to take care of their business. What it means is basically for the rest of the way, you got 3 weeks left. You got to win maybe 2 of the 3 games because St. John's is their 3rd week. They play St. John's on the week right before the playoffs start. They'll get points for it, way. But see, that's where they get hurt, though, where St. John's playing a tough schedule because St. John's loses 2 Eastern Mass games. If St. John's played, a couple lower division Central Mass teams, then they'd be undefeated, and then that would help Marlboro. Right. So this is where you get into that whole debate of playing divisions, playing Eastern Mass. And I had a coach tell me, and I think it's a great idea, make it an incentive. If you play an Eastern Mass team, it's a guaranteed 12 points. If you win, it's 15 points. To incent some of these teams to play Eastern Mass teams. I don't know why everyone bows down to Eastern Mass football. I just don't.
That's the way it's been.
It's the same size schools, but, they're Eastern Mass. They're better. They're bigger than us. No, they're not. They're not.
I used to hate going to covering Super Bowls and things when I'd be in the press box listening to everybody talk about how great this Eastern Mass team is and there's no chance. And then just quietly sit there and watch Central Mass just romp on them because they have some good athletes. They're putting athletes in the NFL now. I mean, so the days of being poor, sisters of fortune and outside of 495, those are over, and it's time for people to realize that.
Yeah. Devil's advocate, I agree with both of you, but that's how Western Mass thinks of us in Central Mass.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I mean, outside of Long Meadow,
and the proof's in the pudding. They should think that way. Central Mass is better than Western Mass.
We'll give you a Kona once in a while.
And this is what Western Mass does. Like, okay, what's our best chance of winning?
Right. They move
this
everything
school
around.
that's 5 times as big as this school, we'll put you down here, and then if I shuffle the cards, you're the sacrificial lamb. You'll play the top division. And then we have 2 huge schools playing tiny schools of Central Mass.
West Springfield.
And Central Mass is still going to win.
West Springfield versus Nipmuc, I think is what you're referring to. Last year, and West Side went out and got smoked.
They did it with Longmeadow years ago. Playing
we got to get out of this block. All right, we have more talk about the power ratings. We'll talk about the races in 5 and 7 and some of the other divisions as well when we come back on the Frenzy Extra.
Coming up this week on the Friday Night Football Frenzy, Division III powers collide as St. John's visits Shepherd Hill. Welcome to Friday night. Valley Tech travels to Bay Path to battle the Minutemen. Pads will be popping at Doyle Field as Wachusett visits Leominster. And Leicester travels to Millbury in an old-fashioned Swickle showdown. The Frenzy on Charter TV 3. The Frenzy is presented by the law offices of Joseph J. Cariglia and by Bay State Savings Bank. Local news from Central Massachusetts for Central Massachusetts.
A serious multi-vehicle accident on Route 146 in Millbury. A suspect is arrested in connection to a fatal shooting. Police say a 20-year-old man was hit by a vehicle from behind. A Northbridge man charged with burying a dog alive.
Reporters in the field. And an in-depth local forecast. Worcester News tonight on Charter TV 3.
All right, welcome back into segment 2. We pretty much broke down Division 3, Division 4. First real look at the power ratings this year. We talked about it a little bit last week. But Division 5, you've got Northbridge on top, undefeated, with Nipmuc, Burncoat, and Oakmont currently in the spots right now if the playoffs were to begin today. Auburn made a pretty big jump with a win over Uxbridge this past weekend, and Auburn plays Northbridge on Saturday. Must win for the Rockets?
I think they're all must win.
I mean, you're the mathematician.
I think they're all must. Yeah, I typed the numbers and for a guy who went into journalism to get away from math, if they start teaching me Spanish, I'll have a lot of problems getting on Algonquin. But I think every game is must win at this point for Auburn, just because they need the points. They had the 3-game losing streak to teams that they normally historically don't lose to. So I think having that said, I think if they need to have a good showing against Northbridge, get a win if they can. Northbridge is tough. They just thought the quarterback situation is kind of in flux with the injuries. So they always put, but this is one of those big rivalry games between the two. So I think Auburn comes through, gets a win here, they're right back into it.
Yeah.
Well, it's the biggest game of the season left. You know what I mean?
It's kind of like the new Super Bowl or new Thanksgiving for Auburn. They play Holy Name. But it's not that traditional rival. This is maybe the most traditional rival they have.
This is the closest they have to a Super Bowl game left on their schedule. And for what it means this year, it's great. But this is what, years ago, okay, it was Oxford on Thanksgiving, but there was always Northbridge, week 3 or 4. It was a huge game going back to when Auburn played on grass. It was a huge game. Both schools got up for it. Both teams got up for it. I'm looking forward to this matchup because I think it is a must-win for Auburn. But that's a big statement win against Uxbridge. In the words of one of the Rockets coaches, we're back. We're back.
Yeah, it felt like it. It felt like they were back. Jack LaPro had a great game for Auburn this past weekend on all 3 phases of the game. Northbridge is 5-0. You mentioned injuries. They've had injuries, obviously. Aiden Fair, and they've had to mix the quarterback position up a little bit. Ken LaChapelle is doing another amazing job. He talked about being a small team with not a lot of depth. And if a couple guys went down, they could be in trouble. But they're 5-0. Now, they play Auburn, maybe the toughest team on their schedule right now, coming up this week. But another great job by the master down there in Northbridge.
Yeah, he just finds the players, and they move people around. And okay, this guy's hurt, we'll move this guy over here, put him there, we'll run these plays now and sort of spotlight, hide the deficiencies of the program and spotlight some of the strengths, and they're rolling. I mean, I think a couple weeks ago when they beat Nipmuc, that was the turning point for them. That showed that they can hang with these guys. I heard all preseason that Northbridge is kind of down. They don't know what they have. They graduated some key players. The 5-0. We can't with the schedule they play. You can't go wrong with that.
This guy picked them in the Frenzy preseason show, but that's again. I know appreciate it.
Very Horowitz on the back.
A freebie at the Gray Barn or something for that. I don't know.
I'll give you a ginger ale.
Burncoat's in that number 3 spot, and they just got a win over a good win this past week. But they have an inter-high team coming up. They get extra points for an inter-high team.
Do
right?
Yeah,
so Burncoat, this would be a huge.
Yeah.
If they win this week and have a shot to get into the playoffs.
I think just being there. I think just being where they are right now, 3-2 in the mix with 3 games left. I think that's huge for their program.
We've been doing the power rankings for like, what, 10 years?
Yeah, talk about coaches too. Give Rick Sincata a ton of credit. He lost his whole staff. Yeah. Remember, a couple months before the season, the whole staff went. They left. So here's the head coach saying, okay, I got to hire all new assistant coaches, and I'm still trying to build this program back up again. I give him a ton of credit to be where they are right now in the mix. It's exciting. If you're still playing for something right now, it's exciting. It can get hard if you're not. If you're had 4 weeks where you're winless, it's hard. But they're not. They're in there. They're in the mix. They're winning games, and they're looking, going, okay, if we take care of our own business, we're in the playoffs.
Right. Yeah. And your guy, the Irishman, Cooney.
Yeah.
The quarterback, looking good with the flowing red locks after the win this past week. So they're in a good spot. It's been a while for Burncoat. So big things perhaps coming for the Patriots. Division 6, Maynard is Maynard. They're 5-0, and they're rolling. Millbury's 4-1, and Millbury has Leicester this week. They're playing down the division, believe it or not. Millbury is smaller than Leicester in the mathematics of Central Massachusetts. That's a big game for both teams. I don't know if Leicester mathematically still has a shot.
They're tough. They have to leapfrog a lot of teams. 7.72 points. That's
right.
They're behind a lot of work to make up over there.
So in 7, to be clear, it's West Boylston, Assabet, Oxford, and Blackstone Valley. Air Shirley's not far behind Blackstone Valley, and Proudy's in double digits as well.
Yeah.
Bay Path is another team that's in front of Leicester. Leicester has to beat Millbury.
Yeah, they're another one. Like we said with Auburn, these guys have to win out, and even then, I think we talked about it earlier. They're big. Last 3 weeks, they had to win one of those games just to get the points. I don't think that they couldn't do it, and then I think that's just there's too much ground to make up now because I think other teams are winning. They're getting the points ahead of them, and if they win out or they 2-1 down the stretch, they're going to have those points to hold them off.
But they'll be up for this week. They'll be up for Millbury, and they're gonna want to play physical Leicester football. Millbury's having a great season. Millbury's having a great season. It's 17 kids in the junior class kind of driving the boat over there at Millbury. But this is a school that's another program rather that's numbers-wise is very small. They do not have a lot of kids in the program. They were putting freshmen in last week. They had 2 freshmen playing safety in the second half last week that I do not believe were over 100 pounds, not way over 100 pounds. And they're in there, and that's what the coaches are saying, like, okay, it's tough because if we get up on a team, we want to put some other kids in there, but now we have freshmen that are 95 pounds. How do you juggle? Like, we just don't have the depth to say, okay, we'll put these juniors and sophomores in that don't play, but are physically close to varsity level. But, I just think Ray Richards has done a great job, too, down there. And those kids, they believe, and they got a lot of excitement around that program.
Anthony Greenwich, their quarterback, great athlete, said to me in the preseason, we want to be the team where people are like, we don't want to play Millbury this week. And you know what? They're getting to beat.
The win over Valley Tech to open the season, that was their statement. They've followed up on it every week.
Yeah, no question about it. They have Auburn in a couple of weeks, too, so that'll be another good test for Millbury. But they look like they're pretty much locked in here with a couple of weeks left. 4-1, high up in the power ratings. Anything can happen.
Yeah, I think Tingsboro is an outlier team. I don't know if they're going to jump in. I think that it's just mostly seedings in that division right now.
Mm-hmm. All right, and we already talked a little about 7. West Boylston, they continue to roll. They got a big win over Lunenburg last week. And, Assabet rolling. They're there in the 2nd spot. Oxford's undefeated, but they're in 3rd. And then it's Valley Tech, Air Shirley, and Proudy are all there before you find Bay Path and Leicester. And Valley Tech and Bay Path are playing this week. It's a huge game for the Minutemen to try to get some credibility against a really good team.
Yeah, they get that win, they almost like leapfrog Valley Tech. So I think that's a big win from all these games right now. They're so important for these guys because which is why I think they want to do this power ranking thing, because they stress the importance of these games. Now you still have to play for something,
right,
and then get the points and see what happens. You know,
right.
Destiny is not in your hands; it's on the other field sometimes.
But you want to say you control what you can control, and you control. Look at what we have for points. Okay, these are the teams above us. We can still get in. We can still get in. We have to win our 3 games.
Right.
You know, and I think that's what they're saying at Bay Path is, listen, you beat Blackstone Valley Tech. You're
lot
right
of
back
points.
in it. You're right back in it.
I want to make sure we get our Frenzy 5 in.
That's right. We got to get that in.
There's been a shake-up here in the final minute here. Our Frenzy 5, and all of us have Doherty number 1 in the Frenzy 5. And then if you look, we've all got St. John's number 2 in the Frenzy 5. Shrewsbury is 3 for all of us. Kevin, you've got Wachusett 4. Jim and I have Neshoba at 4, and Jim and I also have Wachusett in the top 5. Wachusett.
I have Neshoba 5.
Wachusett, yes, and you have Neshoba 5. And Wachusett, they looked like they were a team that was rolling and a little angry after that loss to St. John's.
It's almost like they were where they want to be because
right.
Nobody's really talking about them.
Yeah.
The 2 losses they have were with a touchdown in each other.
Right. Yeah.
So it's not they're getting blown out. This is and Mike Dobzinski and his guys. I think they kind of like that. You know, just the whole keep this. You know, don't talk about us. We'll win when it counts.
Well,
he's not going to be happy we're talking about him now.
No, he won't.
15 seconds,
but
Kev.
Division 4, everyone's within a touchdown of each other. When you go down, who played who and who played who, everyone's within a touchdown
Can't
of
wait
each
for
other.
the playoffs.
I can't either.
Wachusett and Leominster among the big games we will cover for you this week on the Frenzy. And the Frenzy, of course, comes your way Friday night at 10:25. Jim Wilson, thanks for being here again. See you next week. Kevin and I will be back to talk college football right after this.
Coming up this week on the Friday Night Football Frenzy, Division III powers collide as St. John's visits Shepherd Hill. Welcome to Friday Night. Valley Tech travels to Bay Path to battle the Minutemen. Pads will be popping at Doyle Field as Wachusett visits Leominster. And Leicester travels to Millbury in an old-fashioned Swickle showdown. The Frenzy on Charter TV 3. The Frenzy is presented by the law offices of Joseph J. Cariglia and by Bay State Savings Bank. Local news from Central Massachusetts for Central Massachusetts.
A serious multi-vehicle accident on Route 146 in Millbury. A suspect is arrested in connection to a fatal shooting. Police say a 20-year-old man was hit by a vehicle from behind. A Northbridge man charged with burying a dog alive.
Reporters in the field. And an in-depth local forecast. Worcester News tonight on Charter TV 3.
All right, welcome back. College Corner now. WPI got a big win on Charter TV 3 this past weekend with a win over Catholic University. It was Chris Robertson, the head coach, his 50th career win as a head coach in football. And a big win, a shutout win for the defense that's been playing really, really well over the entire course of the year, but especially the last couple of weeks.
Well, you want to lean on your defense. If you're a football coach and a college football coach, you want to lean on your defense, particularly in the second half of the season. When it starts to get cold, the weather can get nasty. Chris Robertson knows he can lean on his defense. As you said, they pitched a shutout last week. This is a team right now, they're going into the bye week so they can rest up, they can get healthy, all those bumps and bruises. They can be ready to go in 2 weeks when they get back after it, and it's always good to be going into the bye week with a win.
Our defense over the past couple of years has been really good. This probably should have been our 4th shutout of the year. We gave up a touchdown with a minute left last week. So our guys, they make mistakes, but they recover, and they've done a great job of ultimately keeping teams out of the end zone. In the second quarter, we went for it on 4th down, and I told the guys, if they go down and score, it's on me. But our defense stepped up, had a goal line stand, nice 4th down stop.
Going into a bye week, how important is a win like this?
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. I used to coach baseball here. If you lose the first game of the doubleheader, you got about 20 minutes till the next one, so you got a shot. So to go 2 weeks on a loss is not an easy thing to do, and I think you think about it too much. And so for us to go in with a win to the bye week, I think our focus for us is going to be able to get healthier and then prepare for the next opponent instead of looking back at the things that we should have or could have done in this game.
So WPI has a bye week this week, and it's good for the crew to get rested and ready. Sean McAllen, their talented running back, a little dinged up last week, so it certainly will be good for him as well. And remember, with the academic schedule of WPI. These kids, some of them have already taken finals. They're already into their second semester. So I think mentally more than anything, it'll be good for those players. And then in 2 weeks, they take on Kings Point, and then 3 weeks, it's undefeated MIT. So the schedule getting tougher and tougher for the Engineers.
I love it when Kev talks academics. The man, he knows of what he speaks. Holy Cross coming off a tough loss to UNH this past week. The Crusaders were whitewashed, and they were controlled by the UNH Wildcats this past weekend. So they have to turn the page quickly again. They have a Friday night game against Harvard. Another tough test before they get back into league play, and Bob Chesney knows it'll be tough, but it's also a little bit of excitement playing under the lights on a Friday night.
Last week, as you looked at it, we became a little bit one-dimensional. So it resulted in 1 for 12 on third down and just not a good outing overall. Have to be better in special teams. Have to be better in everything we're doing. When you're 1 and 5, that's usually the case. Though you got to be better in everything. Which again, get off the field, sustain drives, get into scoring position, try to play on some sort of a slanted field. Don't give up the big play defensively. Whole thing that comes along with those Friday nights probably brings back those memories for those guys. But that intensity that's going to come with that has to show up right away. And I know it will. Last night was a great practice, and I hope that's something that we could, bleed into Friday night. I think the energy will be high. I think that they'll be very excited again to be there. And I think you get off that bus, you walk into that stadium under the lights, no better venue.
And Assumption College will be our game of the week this week against Southern Connecticut. And it's always tough in the conference. Southern Connecticut's a traditional power, but Assumption is the power right now. And coming off a bye week, the Hounds looking good. Yeah,
they're the ones that are being chased right now in that NE10 division. Cody Williams, their quarterback, won a gold helmet a couple weeks ago. They had the bye week. Andy McKenzie said they worked him real hard. They went at it hard in practice for 3 days. Hitting, it was physical, it was tough, it was grueling. They came through flying colors mentally, emotionally. That's what he liked to see. He said physically we're right there, but the emotion in practice has been great during these 2 weeks to get ready for this game. The Hounds will be ready on Saturday.
We're excited to get ready to play Southern. They're a good football team on both sides of the football. Very physical on the offensive side. 2 mobile quarterbacks that can throw the ball around really well and run it too. And then they have a couple good running backs that will present some good challenges to our defense and make sure we do a good job of tackling in space. And then on the defensive side of the ball, they're an aggressive 4-3 cover 2 team. They tackle well, they're physical, they'll pressure the quarterback. I like their structure, they look well coached. So we have a good test this coming Saturday.
And of course you can see Saturday's game right here on Charter TV 3. It is Assumption. The Hounds have won 4 in a row. They are undefeated in league play, taking on Southern Connecticut. We'll kick it off at 7 p.m.
It is Nichols and Becker on Saturday. Nichols looking to lean on some local guys maybe as they continue to climb the mountain.
Be 3-3 after 6 games, 500 with 4 remaining. It's certainly a team goal of ours, but a lot of football to be played. Even this week, Becker, they're a team that beat us last year. Team you can't take lightly. They've played a lot of teams very close, including locally Worcester State. I think that was a 2-point game, so we know we're going to have our hands full this week. And when you play a school within 15, 20 miles, it's going to be a rivalry game. And with Becker, it's no different. Since I've been here the last 4 years, I think we're 2-2. It's gone back and forth. They've both been very close. Last year, they beat us by 1. And again, I expect this game this week to be just as tough and just as physical.
Here is the Frenzy Extra Dean's List for this week. Sam Liss, the Westboro star, leads us off at Worcester State, 10 tackles against Western Connecticut State. Jeremy Martin, a kicker out of Shepherd Hill at Plymouth State, 2 for 2 in field goals, hit a 44-yarder against Bridgewater State. Michael Carina out of St. John's and now at Norwich, 10 tackles, a tackle for a loss against Merchant Marine. The Q, Kieran Wright out of Holy Name, playing at Framingham State, 107 rushing yards and a touchdown against Fitchburg State. Daniel George at Anna Maria, the former Leicester star, 9 tackles, including a tackle for a loss against Castleton in a win for the Amcats. And Drew Jean-Guillaume, enchanté, Central Connecticut, 157 yards, 82 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns against Robert Morris, and DJG was the NEC Offensive Player of the Week. And that is another week for us on the Frenzy Extra. Kev, great to have you.
It's always good to be here.
All right, we'll be back.
I appreciate the airtime.
We'll be back next week with Jim Wilson, but we'll be back first on Friday night, 10:25, for the Friday Night Football Frenzy. Good night, everybody.